All right, everybody, how's it going? Welcome to week 2 of the NFL preseason. Of course, week 1 just finished up, and we did pretty good. We went 8-8 overall, which isn't the worst record, but it's not the best. But again, it's the preseason, especially with like week 1. It's kind of just like trying to, what's the old saying? Something like trying to catch fish in a barrel. I can't really say the other word because we're still within the first 30 seconds of the video. You know how YouTube can be. But basically, it's just stabs in the dark, and you're just trying to figure out what is what, trying to go off reputations of teams, and that's kind of how we're approaching week 2 as well. Though we'll probably see a little bit more starter play from teams. It's still kind of like you should look out for teams that are in major quarterback battles or in position battles to do well. Teams that have a lot to prove or trying to like get themselves rolling a little bit might look a little better than like established teams or teams that kind of openly shrug off the preseason like the Bengals or the Rams. Excuse me. So just keep that in mind when we look at our week 2 pick'em. We went 8-8 last week, so hopefully it's a good run this week. Sorry, that was the last one. Sorry. Sometimes I have to burp to get the video going. You know how it is. I always call that a good luck burp. Whenever I burp before a video, that's usually a good sign. That's it's a good sign. Anyway, if you don't mind, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. All those YouTube things that help grow the channel. I only do that at the beginning of the video just to get it out of the way, and it does like actually help the video out for whatever reason. Not sure why. But again, sorry about that. Let's just jump into the video. Week 2 of the preseason. Of course, we went 158, 111, and 2 last year. Not the greatest, not the worst. So 8-8. Let's see how we can improve on that heading into week 2 of the preseason, or we'll do worse. Oh, it doesn't really mean much. It's the preseason. So again, we're doing this just to kind of shake off the cobwebs and get back into it. Thursday night football, just one game at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. Of course, the line comes from FanDuel.com. We always use them, and we include them so people have a reference point. We don't really use the lines to consider who wins. They're always added after we make all our picks, so that way I'm not influenced by outside things other than the game. So we're looking at the Eagles and the Browns. Browns are 1-1, coming off a 17-15 loss to the Commanders, and the Eagles are 0-1. Of course, they're 0-1. They played the Ravens, the team that cannot lose in the preseason. They've won 24, 25 straight now. Unreal. So we're looking at the Eagles are favored by 3.5 with an over/under of 37.5. Yeah, and I kind of agree with it. We may see a little bit more out of like the Eagles starting unit, but probably not much. I like the way they played against the Ravens, though. Again, the Ravens seem to win by some kind of weird magic, and that seemed to have happened again in that game. The Browns looked pretty good against the Jets, and then they looked very pedestrian against the Commanders. I can't remember if anything got going in the run game for the Browns in terms of their backups. I didn't really mind what I seen out of the Eagles' backups. Again, they just happened to run into a team that doesn't really lose in the preseason, so it's really hard to, get anything out of that. I don't know what it is about the Ravens this time of year. But again, we'll see if the Browns can look a little bit more like they did against the Jets. But, I didn't really like what I seen out of that backup offensive unit at all. I think the Eagles can kind of just beat them out with that. All right, let's go to Friday Night Football. Oh, yeah, so I like the Eagles 17-14. Plus, the Eagles are home, so home team kind of has a big sway in the preseason at times. 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, the Carolina Panthers. This is on Friday now. The Panthers take on the Giants. Giants are 3-point favorites with an over/under of 38.5. Both teams lost. The Panthers lost to the Jets 27-0, and the Giants lost to the Lions 21-16. So we're kind of, Giants get some points because they're at home. That's kind of how I took it. Well, with the Panthers, I was also that was a very bad performance. Their backups aren't very good because, again, their starting unit's already pretty thin, and it isn't going to be the greatest starting unit as it is. So the backups are probably even pretty worse than that. Whereas the Giants, they were a playoff team, so they probably have or are starting to accumulate pretty good depth because they had a pretty decent roster. Now the depth is starting to build up, but again, they ran into a Lions team that seems to be loaded with depth. And they didn't even play bad. It's just the Lions seemed to come from nowhere at the end of that game and just, home advantage, I guess. I don't know. But again, I liked what I seen out of the Giants a lot more than what I seen out of the Panthers, which was nothing. And then we have the 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard. This will be a quick game to give my breakdown on. The Falcons are favored by 6.5 over the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are 0-1. They lost 36-19 to the Packers, and the Falcons beat the Dolphins 19-3. Basically, the Falcons are taking the preseason a little more seriously than the Bengals are. They're using this to kind of set their team, get things started, get things rolling. We'll probably see a decent amount of their starters in this game. And then whereas the Bengals, we already know what their plan is. Just don't get hurt and, do it, just get through it. They're Zach Taylor's from that Sean McVay school of thought of where the preseason doesn't really matter. And I think the 49ers also go with that philosophy. It's more about like getting timing and seeing what you have to work with. So give me the Falcons in that one. Saturday football, we have 1 o'clock Eastern Standard. We have the Jaguars taking on the Lions in Detroit. The Jaguars are for some reason favored by 4 despite the game being in Detroit with an over-under of 39.5. Both teams are 1-0. We know the Lions beat the Giants. The Jaguars beat the Cowboys 28-23. The thing here for me is despite liking what I seen on the Lions backup defense a little bit, I really didn't like their starting offensive backups. That was a pretty bad unit, and I think the Jaguars can take advantage of once the Detroit starters get out of the game. I think the Jaguars backup unit is a little sharper, a little better than what the Lions backup units are. The Lions are a very good starting team, and they have decent depth, but the some of that depth was, outside of maybe Teddy Bridgewater will be a better quarterback, but boy, oh boy. Yeah, I don't know how well they're going to do against the Jaguars, who seem to be a pretty good team based off last year and heading in their last game against the Cowboys. Then I don't know. I just don't like the Lions' backup quarterbacks and offense, really. So give me the Jags. Regular season game, give me the Lions. But anyway, 4 o'clock Eastern Standard here on Saturday. We have the Dolphins taking on the Texans. Texans are 3.5-point favorites with an over-under of 39.5. And we know the Falcons beat the Dolphins 19-3, and the Patriots lost to so the Texans beat the Patriots 20-9. So pretty good opening win. The defense looked really good, so they'll probably be able to stifle down this Miami Dolphins team. That's primarily going to be consisted of backups. I would imagine that Mike McDaniels, who comes from the Shanahan school, which also has the Taylors and the McVays in it, through the long line. You can kind of see maybe how the Dolphins maybe are like, it's the preseason, who really cares? That's kind of the vibe I got. You don't really lose 19-3 because you give a shit about the preseason. Plus the Dolphins backup units, I think their backup offensive line isn't good at all. Like, it's really, really bad. And I think the Texans show that they can pretty much stifle any kind of a run game against the Patriots. Even, you can take what you can. So I'll take the Texans over the Dolphins, mainly on the count of the Dolphins really don't seem to care about the preseason. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This should actually be a pretty fun game to watch. The Buffalo Bills take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers are favored by 2.5 with an over-under of 41. Steelers being the home team kind of give it a little bit of a push for me. Both teams won their last games. Bills beat the Colts 23-19. Steelers beat the Bucks 27-17. So basically, this game feels like it's going to be really hard to determine because both these teams have very good depth and they're both very well coached. And they have good starting. Well, Buffalo has a better starting unit, but we're not going to see much of Buffalo starters in this game, like we won't see much of Pittsburgh starters. So basically, I just kind of got to look at like whose win was I more impressed by. I don't know if the Colts are going to be at all good this year, and the Buccaneers, they're in this like weird spot where like, if their quarterback play can be good, they might actually be a decent team because they have a pretty good roster, but the quarterback situation is so bad, they're probably going to be miserable. Whereas like the Colts, they could be a top 5 picking team even if they have a good year. Like, it just seems like they're not as good as the Bucks. And that may be wild to say, but like the Bucks feel like a quarterback away. The Colts feel like several positions away. So I'm more impressed with the Steelers beating up on the Bucks than the Colts sneaking past, or the Bills sneaking past the Colts. It's kind of that's my breakdown on that one. I don't know. I love the preseason. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Chicago Bears and the perfect Justin Fields, 3 for 3, 130 yards and 3 touchdowns. Unbelievable numbers. A lot of yak in that, though. Take on the Colts, we just talked about. Colts are favored by 3.5 with an over-under of 40. The Bears beat the Titans 23-17. The Colts lost to the Bills 23-19. I don't know if you're a Colts fan. Anthony Richardson was just named the starter, so we'll probably see a lot of the backups in this game from both teams, though, maybe a little starters. I don't know. The Bears look pretty good against the Titans. Colts looked mediocre against the Bills. I don't know. The Bears starting offense looked good. They look good the whole game. I don't know. I'm going to take the Bears in this one. Who cares? Neither of these teams are going to be relevant at the end of the season, so who really gives a shit? Like, I can tell you right now that these two teams are going to be fighting for the top 5 picks in this draft. With the Texans, actually, the Texans might be better than both them. 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, another Saturday. There's like 11 games on Saturday. It's pretty crazy. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers take on the New York Jets. Jets are favored by 2 with an over-under at 36.5. The Bucs lost to the Steelers 27-17 as previously discussed, and the Jets dominated the Panthers 27-0 as previously discussed. Yeah, I like the Jets at this one. They're going to be home. The Buccaneers, they looked they look pretty mediocre against the Steelers, who aren't as good as the Jets on any aspect. Could be a decently close. No, it won't. This looks like it was like they destroyed the Panthers, and the Steelers, they couldn't. The Bucs just looked very mediocre. I really like the Jets in this game. If the Bucs find a quarterback, they could compete with teams, but without a quarterback, the Jets defense could take very big advantage of Baker and Kyle. So I like the Jets. And they're home, so whatever. More Saturday football. Oh shit, the Super Bowl champions, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, future Super Bowl champion New England Patriots take on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers are favored by 3 with an over-under of 37. Both teams lost, as we've already discussed. The Bengals beat the Packers 36-19, or the Packers won. Sorry, that should be 1-0. Sorry, I messed up. The Packers won their game 36-19, and the Patriots lost their game 20-9. Sorry about that. I have a typo in there. That should say Packers 1-0. So I have the Packers winning, and they probably win quite comfortably because, again, they're building on something. They're trying to develop their team. We might see the starters a little more. We're trying to, they're rebuilding in the post Aaron Rodgers era, and they looked really good on offense, all things considered, last week. So I'm going to give them the respect here. The Patriots kind of looked like they were just going through the motions, trying to see what kind of depth they got. We may see Mac Jones in this game. None of the starters really played against the Texans. I don't know if they're going to play against the Packers. They may utilize the combined practice to not play starters. So I don't know. It's kind of tough to tell at this exact moment. But right now, I like the Packers. They seem to be doing a little bit more in the preseason to win. So 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Tennessee Titans take on the Minnesota Vikings. Titans are favored by 2.5 with an over-under of 39.5. Both of these teams did lose. We know the Titans lost to the Bears, and we know the Vikings lost to the Seahawks. Seahawks beat the Vikings 24-13. I don't think we've said that one yet. This game's pretty straightforward. I think the Titans have better depth than the Vikings because the Vikings are rather thin now with their starting units. The Vikings just looked like they may not care too much about the preseason as well, based on their coach being from specifically the McVay tree, and with Zach Taylor and O'Connell. I think those 3 guys don't really care about the preseason, along with Mike McDaniel. Those guys really just, I really think those are like a group of guys who the preseason is more about just getting through the motions and seeing what kind of depth you got, not really caring about the actual outcome of the game, because again, it doesn't really mean much. And I think Mike Vrabel might take it a little bit more seriously, but not much more. So I don't know, I like the Titans. I don't know who to pick in this one. The Kansas City Chiefs take on the Arizona Cardinals. The Chiefs lost their game 26-24 against the Saints, and we know how Andy Reid feels. He doesn't whatever about the preseason. And then we have the Cardinals, who beat the Broncos 18-17. I should have picked the Cardinals in this one, and I was going to, but I wound up going with the Chiefs just because it's like, if the Chiefs try just a little bit, they should destroy the Cardinals. Like, even if they go like 50-60%, the Chiefs will win this game. So I like the Chiefs, and the line is hilarious for a preseason game. I've never seen a -7.5 with like, that just seems crazy to me. Chiefs are favored by almost 8 points in a preseason game. Jesus Christ. That's the funny thing about that's more interesting than the whole game, is why the hell they gave them a 7.5 point line. All right, let's go down to the next one. Every game's been like 3, 3, 3, 2.5, and then we get to the Chiefs and it's -7.5. Jesus. The Denver Broncos take on the San Francisco 49ers. Both teams did lose their games, as we previously discussed. The Cardinals lost to the Broncos, or the Broncos lost to the Cardinals, and the 49ers lost to the Raiders 34-7. Broncos are favored by 3.5 with an over-under 39. I got the Broncos winning. They're probably going to try a little bit more. 49ers and Shanahan if they don't give a shit about the preseason. He's kind of... We know that the 49ers preseason games are basically just kind of get through the motions. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. And as they are kind of like this injury prone team, you can understand why that's sort of the way they approach the preseason. Just get through it. Nobody gets hurt and we can start dominating in the regular season. So yeah, give me the Broncos. They should be able to win this one. Sunday Night Football. I think there's only 3 games left. The Raiders take on the Rams. Raiders are favored by 3.5 with an over-under at 36.5. Of course, the Raiders, we just said, won their game 34-7, and then the Rams lost 34-17 to the Chargers. Again, we have 2 very different situations here, which is why I have the Raiders winning by quite a dramatic score. McVay and the company has basically openly always stated they don't care about the preseason, which is why I always say that about very specific teams. I just go off what they've said in the past, and like I'm assuming unless they've changed their stance, they still, believe in the way that they, used to believe about the preseason. So I don't know. The Rams don't care. Josh McDaniels and the Raiders obviously do with the way that they won last week. So give me the Raiders over the Rams in a game where one team is doing way more than the other. The Dallas Cowboys take on the Seahawks at 10 o'clock. The Seahawks are favored by 7 with an over-under of 37.5. We've already discussed both the scores. No need to rehash them. We know the Cowboys lost. We know the Seahawks won. It's in Seattle. For some reason, Seattle's favored by 7, which is a hilarious line. I'm guessing that it's because Seattle's going to come out here and try a lot harder than the Cowboys, who, once the starters go out, they're probably done. It's just get through the motions and get to the next game. I think that's a McCarthy thing. I'm not exactly sure, but I don't know. It just, with a line like that, it's clear one team isn't going to be trying. Plus, home, I don't know. Sunday football, last game of the weekend. The New Orleans Saints take on the Los Angeles Chargers. Saints are favored by 3.5 with an over-under of 37.5. Both teams won their games, but the sad thing is they were both playing teams that typically don't really try in the preseason. So basically, I'm just kind of going what team I think has better depth and who's going to play, who has better starters to give their team maybe a smaller jump. And the Chargers are just a better team all the way down than the Saints. So oh wait, there's wait, what the fuck? There's one more, I guess. All right, let's do the last game. Monday Night Football. Ravens take on the Commanders. We both know that they're both 1-0. It's the battle for Baltimore, the battle for Washington, the battle of Virginia or Maryland or whatever. That whole area. It's the battle for that. So the Ravens take on the Commanders. Ravens are favored by 3.5 with an over-under of 38.5. And basically, until the Ravens actually lose a preseason game, I like the Ravens to win. And I think they're a better team than the Commanders, who, whatever. So yeah, I like the Ravens over the Commanders. I knew that was the last game. I don't know why it kind of slipped by my mind the way it did. But all right, that's pretty much that for this video. We got through all the games. That's 16 of them. 16 of them. Let me know what you think down below. Leave a comment with your own picks, with whatever. Leave your likes, subscribe, whatever you want to do. I appreciate it very, very much. Thanks for listening all the way to the end. We have, we'll do week 3 next week. We got week 2 down the drain. Hopefully it's a good week. We'll never know. Yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for listening. Under 20 minutes again. Getting good at that. Again, there'll be more to these videos once the season actually gets going. But again, it's the preseason. You can only do so much. So thanks again for listening. Hopefully you have a good rest of your day, night, mid-morning, mid-afternoon, whenever you decide to give this a listen. Have a good one. Peace out, and go Lions, go Tigers. And of course, it's always go Patriots. Week 2 down the drain.